The volunteers told me politely that this parking is reserved for Sadhguru. I grumbled as I drove from one lane to the next, trying to find another parking spot. I had come essentially for my sister who wanted to attend this yoga class. Hoping it would help her asthma condition, I somehow landed up with the responsibility of dropping and picking her up. Hence, I also landed up in the class. As an active girl just out of my teens training to be a pilot, the yoga class was not something I fancied. So here I was sitting grumpily in the class, expecting someone like a gym trainer to walk in and show her some yoga poses. To my utter disappointment, a few minutes later, a bearded man entered the class. In his white kurta and dhoti, walking very gently. It wasn't a great beginning at all. Though I found Sadhguru's voice very arresting, I didn't pay much attention. In fact, the next day I drove in early and stole his parking spot. Feeling very satisfied, I sat in the class, but this second day felt different for both of us. On our way back, we usually chatty sisters hardly exchanged any words between us. Third day, his parking spot was available, but I chose not to take it. That day, I sat in attention, listening to every word with absolute focus. To my surprise, he came up to me after the class and casually talked to me about my flying experience. That night, I did not sleep. I had no clue about what spiritual path is, what enlightenment is, or what Guru is. And I didn't know who Sadhguru is, but I felt I had known him forever. There was an utter clarity within me that day that this path, whatever it is, would be my life, but I had no idea how. From then on, I started to actively volunteer. Since I was so young, my parents were worried whether I really understood what it meant to walk in this path. So they met Sadhguru to understand what was happening. After the meeting, Sadhguru advised me to take 3 months break and see if this was what I really wanted. My parents packed me off to UK, but of course my clarity was for real and I came back just in time for the 90 days wholeness program. I'm so grateful to my parents who respected my decision and blessed my journey ahead. What I saw of Sadhguru during the 90 days wholeness program matured my relationship with him in so many ways. Every day he would come looking very different and exuding totally different energy. For the first 30 days, each day he would conduct a new explosive meditation. Many of us had visions of life beyond our normal sense of perception. At the end of the 90 days, I felt as we moved from being friends to disciples to devotees, so too. Sadhguru's persona morphed from being a yoga teacher to a mystic to a guru. Though most of us never articulated this within us, it happened inadvertently. I simply stayed on as a full-time resident after the wholeness. It was not a matter of choice anymore. Soon I had the taste what it meant to walk the path choicelessly. After the wholeness, my energies opened up in such a way that I was facing peak of joy and peak of hell within me on a daily basis. For a 20 years old girl, it was too much to bear sometimes. A day came when I felt I had hit the pit within, and I called up Sadhguru for help. He had given me all the tools that could bring me out of this, was all he said before putting the phone down. I thought about it and made my own sadhana schedule. For the next 48 days, after the morning practices and the meal, from morning 10:30 to evening 5:30, I sat on a stone under the neem tree that we call Shivalaya and did 3 hours of Om chanting and 3 hours of Sukha Kriya followed by Samyama meditation. I would set my food down on earth only in the evening to go for presence and evening practices. This sadhana, followed by Samyama, brought me an inner balance that till today carries me through situations in so many ways. This was a turning point in my life that grounded me to the path. I was initiated into Brahmacharya in 1996. Viji and I connected very well with each other from the very beginning. Whenever she was in ashram, we used to do our practices together. On the day she left her body, actually I was with her through the day. On Jan 23, 1997, a full moon day, Sadhguru called and asked me to be with Viji. She was on a certain sadhana, so I sat with her either meditating or assisting her in cooking for the Brahmacharis. She used to serve us meal on full moon days. However, after our first meditation session, she walked straight to Sadhguru's desk and picked up a diary and handed it to me, saying, "Henceforth, I write all Sadhguru's appointment in this and send it to him." I protested mildly. I was very comfortable letting Viji know Sadhguru's appointment, and in turn she would inform him. It had been working very well, so I could not understand why she wanted to change that. But she insisted. I took it thinking that I was not going to do it anyways. Never knew a grand plan of leaving her body the very same evening. I have the diary with me till date, not just as a souvenir from her, but a huge reminder of a possibility that existed here. In my moments of despair and frustration, it kept me going. Meanwhile, Sadhguru has started working on the energy process related to Dhyanalinga consecration, and we had no idea what it meant. Sadhguru had been preparing us for the event, that he might leave his body after the consecration. He had in fact already built his samadhi beforehand. We were in turmoil within ourselves. As we neared the completion, Sadhguru wouldn't give us the date for the final consecration as he wanted his system to be fully ready. First, he said it would happen soon. Then he started to say maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after. We were living at the edge of our lives, waiting for that day. On Jan 23, 1999, Sadhguru said that the consecration would happen the next day. He told me to invite only few very disciplined volunteers who would not disturb him in the final phase of this process. So we had about 150 to 200 people sitting in the dome. During this process, the invited meditators sat with their backs to the linga and Brahmacharis sat facing the linga. Sadhguru was on the Avodayar. Towards the end of a certain process, Sadhguru said Agna. We followed the instruction he had given us earlier and went along with the process. Then he said Vishuddhi, then Anahata. Then he said Manipuraka. He bent forward as if in pain. Then he said Swadhisthana. And he looked very unstable on his feet. Seeing this, I was sitting almost on my toes. Finally, we heard him saying Mooladhara, and the next we saw him falling down. I instinctively ran and put my hand under his head before it would hit the Avodaya stone. By then, the other Brahmacharis also came and gathered around. We carried him out to a vehicle and to his house and did not see him for 3 days after that. Except for a brief appearance of the gathering of volunteers, even then he had to be supported by Brahmacharis. I was restless, hoping for a reassuring word about his health. 3 days later, I got a message to come and meet Sadhguru, and there he was sitting in his chair, smiling and looking glorious. I held on to him and wept. He was in tears too. Everything felt perfect in that moment. He was there alive with us. In the initial years, from the humble beginning on a small piece of land, we would dream of the time when the world would recognize Sadhguru or who he was. It is extremely heartwarming to finally see that happening. From accompanying Sadhguru in his search for this ashram land till today, it is my privilege to be on this journey end to end. Sadhguru has once said that we must create a space that even the gods would envy. Well, I live with the one who makes them.